What's up guys? Welcome back to the channel. As you guys are aware by now, about a week and a half ago I had myself a pretty high speed, gnarly get off where I sent the 841 race machine flipping down the course at like 4th gear wide open. Luckily, the bike and I made it out relatively injury-free. We had a snapped fender and a sore wrist, but that was pretty much the extent of it. However, the last couple times that I've ridden, I've noticed just a little bit of a tweak somewhere in my front end. I've loosened all the bolts, tried to straighten everything out, torqued them back down, and without fail, as I'm riding, something just feels a little bit off. It's probably something like the handlebar mount bolts up through the triple clamp, could be as serious as the actual triple clamps themselves bending, but you know what? It just doesn't matter. Because the plan all along has been to replace the stock clamps with these. Some absolutely beautiful Generation 3 clamps from our friends over at Luxon Racing. They claim on their website that these are the most advanced triple clamps available on the market, and today we're gonna dive into them and test them out on the track and see if that's true. I mean, at first glance here, I'm inclined to agree with them because these things are like works of art. If I was a rich man that didn't race dirt bikes, I might buy these just to use as a centerpiece on my kitchen table. But looking pretty is not everything, am I right, gentlemen? So we're gonna take a look at some of the features that these things have to offer. Then we're gonna throw them on the 841 race machine and we're gonna head out to the track and actually go ahead and try them out, and I'll give you guys kind of my first thoughts. So get excited. Now, the reason I chose to go with Luxon, and I'm sure you guys can agree with me here, it's always a little bit frustrating when you're checking out your favorite factory pros bike and you see a trick part on it and you're like, man, I want that for my bike. And you get online and order it up, and when it shows up in the mail, you realize that the version that they made for Jet Lawrence or Eli Tomac is not exactly the same version that you were able to buy as a consumer. And it makes sense. Obviously, price is no object for a guy like Jet Lawrence. In order to make the part reasonably priced for the consumer, they have to, dumb it down a little bit. But there are certain situations where a customer might not care about the price. They just want the most factory part that they can get their hands on. And what I really respect about Luxon is that while they do make a, consumer version of their triple clamp at a decent price point, made out of a little bit less exotic materials, no titanium, a little bit less adjustability, and that's gonna be good enough for most people, but they also make the super factory pro version of the triple clamp, which is what I have here in my hands. And on these things, no corners cut, the most advanced grade aluminum that you can get, titanium bolts, tons of adjustability with handlebar mounts, the oval steering stem mount so you can change offsets and stuff. And they make these no expenses spared products available to you and me. So when you see Cody Schock or Max Volan podium a professional supercross race, you can get on and order the exact triple clamps that those guys are running on their Club MX Yamahas, which is so sick. And a guy like me, a privateer in the sport, can really appreciate that because I don't have the connections to get those one-off factory pieces. So when a company like Luxon offers up these super factory pro components, it just helps a guy like me mitigate that gap between my bike and the factory equipment. That's why I always love working with the guys at Luxon. But yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and get these things installed. I will stop at certain points throughout the installation process to show you guys some of the features that you get with these pro clamps, and then we're gonna get out to the track and try them out. So intro done. Let's get installing these things. So first thing we're gonna notice is the steering stem hole on the top clamp is ovalized, and it comes with 2 separate steering stems. That allows for you to change the offset on command. See, this stem is set up for either 21 or 24 millimeter offset, and the one over here is set up for 22 or 23. 22 is stock, so that's what I'm gonna start out with, but I'm very excited to go out and do a testing day where I try out all the different offsets. And the stems each come with the associated inserts, so that when you flip the top clamp over, these are also offset. They fit right in there. You can see the offset arrow is pointing at 24, so when we flip these over, that moves the steering stem backwards relative to the forks. We can flip this around. Now in 21 millimeter mode, it moves the stem forward relative to the forks. Essentially what that does is 24 millimeters will lengthen your wheelbase. It'll move your front tire further forward away from the bike, and then 21 will move them closer to you. So when it's closer, you get a little bit more responsive and tighter steering, a little bit snappier and more reactive. And then as you go go longer, 22, 23, 24, it lengthens the bike out, sort of stabilizes things, slows down that steering. There's a lot more that goes into the physics of it, messing with the trail of the front wheel and all that. And some people will argue that changing the trail actually has the opposite effect, but we won't get into that in this video. That's for a future video, but just for right now, know that it's adjustable. However, I'm going with the stock 22 offset, so we're gonna take this spacer, make sure the 22 lines up with the offset arrow, and we're gonna zip that in place. They also provide incredibly detailed instructions if you follow this QR code on your phone, which is awesome, so that's what I'm gonna be following. Like magic, installed, and then the stem, you obviously have to pick the correct stem. It goes down through the top of the bottom clamp. See, the offset's pointed at 22. And probably the hardest part of this whole process, torquing this nut down to 100 Newton meters. And then I'm gonna recommend greasing up this bad boy before you actually put the stem down in the bottom clamp. And now we get to put them on the bike. Big design update though. If you've worked on Austrian bikes before, you will be very familiar with the pinch bolt design of the upper clamp, which has become a pretty common failure point for these bikes. There's no locking ring underneath like is common on the Japanese brands. Instead, you set the steering torque just with this top bolt here, and then this is simply a pinch bolt to sort of lock everything in place. And it's pretty common for people to not check this bolt regularly enough, which allows this gap to open up bigger. That allows the top clamp to wiggle on the steering stem, and it can actually snap the steering stem or the clamp. I've seen that happen a lot of times. Whereas you can see the top clamp on the Luxon is just like the Japanese brands. It's a fully enclosed loop, no pinch bolt, and instead they use a locking nut underneath the top clamp to hold the bottom clamp on and set tension. That's one of the best parts about these triple clamps. You are a lot safer riding them because you don't have the danger of breaking that top clamp. So huge design upgrade from Luxon. So there you can see the locking ring, and that is how you set the tension on the steering, decide how stiff you want it. So much better design. And then the top clamp just goes right over top of that. And good gravy, those things are looking nice. Now, one of my next favorite things that's actually super low key is you can look all the way straight down through the steering stem right here, which on the Japanese bikes is where you would normally put your gas line. And you can actually do that now, which is so rad. Because as you will see over here on the stock clamps, you cannot do that with any other Austrian clamp. And their workaround is that the gas line goes into the side of the frame right here, which might not seem like a big deal, but any gas overflow goes down your frame and directly into the bottom bearing for the steering clamp. So if we come over here, this bike only has like 4 hours on it, and this was fully greased when I first put it together. And as you can see, the gas runs straight down and into that bearing and completely strips it of grease, and it actually even smells like fuel. I've always hated that. You have to take your front end apart and re-grease that like every 5 hours if you want your steering to stay tight. So actually, I am so stoked that Luxon has that hollow down all the way through. I am for sure gonna run my gas line down there and completely fix that bearing issue. Now for the fun part, the actual handlebar mounts. As you can see, 3 different mounting positions on the top clamp here for your handlebar mounts to actually mount into. And then as you can see on the actual handlebar mount, this hole is offset one direction. So a total of 6 different mounting positions. In the back hole with the mount turned backwards, that's called position 1. Back hole mounts forward is position 2. Middle hole mounts backward, position 3, all the way up to position 6. They have a helpful guide over here that will tell you what mounting position is closest to stock or whatever you're running at the current moment. So that would technically be position 4. We want it in the middle hole with the offset forwards. And that will be technically a little bit less than 1 millimeter further back than my handlebars are on the stock clamps. But I think I will actually like that because I kind of like to get off the back of the bike. But that's something else that we can play with when we're at the track as well. Right now, I'm just setting it as close to stock as I can. Then I'll race High Point, and then probably between High Point and Southwick, I'll do a whole testing day where I try out different offsets and different handlebar mounting positions. But for now, we're gonna set it up as close to stock as we can. Now, since the mounts bolt directly into the top clamp with no rubber, they have moved the rubber into the handlebar mount itself. And you have a choice between green, which is the softest, yellow, which is medium, and red, which is the stiffest. For pro motocross, they recommend red. So I'm gonna go ahead and start out with those. But the steel frame is known to vibrate a little bit. So if I feel some vibration coming through up into my hands, I will definitely drop down to the yellow medium and see if that sort of takes care of some of that. So again, tons of adjustability with these, but we're gonna start off with the red dampening cones. Okay, it's a bit of a puzzle piece, but we got it figured out. We got the red cones installed. The bars are all good and ready to go. What's nice about the direct mount is you will never twist your bars. These things literally cannot twist. So could save your race if you have a little tip over and your bars would normally tweak. Well, now they cannot. So I can cartwheel the 841 machine as hard as I want to down the course, and she should be good. So all that's left now is to install the forks with these beautiful titanium bolts, nice and lightweight. So we'll do that real quick, then we'll load up and we'll head to the track and we will actually test these bad boys out. Let's do it. Guys, well, you saw day one with the clamps, but it's been a couple months now. I have a couple pro nationals on these Luxon clamps. Countless practice laps, and dude, I can't say enough good things about them. I've never been a very front heavy rider. I like to get off the back of the bike, so normally my complaints are never with the front end, but even I was able to feel the extra like precision and rigidity that these things have over the stock clamps. And going back to the practice bike that has the stock clamps on it, I never noticed how soft and flexible the stock clamps are. So even someone who's not very particular about the front end and someone who rides sand all the time, I could tell a difference. So if you're a front heavy rider and you ride more clay tracks where it's more necessary to get over the front end, I think you guys are really gonna like the extra confidence that you get out of these clamps. But strength and rigidity aside, I mean, that's obviously nice, but just the quality of life improvements you get with these clamps and the adjustability is so epic. From adjustable offset all the way down to just that gas cap trick I was showing you guys earlier. Truly don't know if I'm ever gonna be able to go back to the stock clamps. I'm gonna have to get a set of these for every bike that I have from here on out. I am very particular about upgrades that I do to my bike, which is why my bikes are very stock for the most part. The way you guys can tell if I like a part is if you continue to see it on my bikes, and yeah, these will be a staple on my bikes from here on out. Since that video, I have actually moved the handlebars back to position 3 from position 4. I've been doing a lot of testing with these little guys, which I didn't even show you earlier. This is a little bridge that connects the split in the lower clamp. It adds a little bit more rigidity to the front end. So if you're riding a bunch of sand, these are like really nice. And anytime I go to a sand track, I throw these on. I've not played with the offset yet, but now that it's the off season, this is a perfect time to do all that. So I'm getting a little ahead of myself. This is kind of just a first impressions and showing you guys the features video. But I am gonna do a bunch of videos coming up pretty soon, trying all the different offsets, trying different handlebar positions, trying out the rigidity links, all that good stuff. But for now, I hope you like this video. If you guys have some recommendations on parts that you have tried that are a must do for your bikes, please let me know, because I would love to try them out. I'm always looking to make my bike a little bit better. And if I end up liking it, I love sharing my experience with you guys. So that's gonna do it for this one. Thank you guys very much for tuning in. We'll catch you in the next one. Peace out, guys.
Faster, faster, dude. It's like we're moving